So May is shaping up to have a ton of interesting releases on Steam, and not all of them are necessarily like AAA fare or anything like that, but I did notice that there are a lot of really interesting indie games that are coming out that either have like a really unique premise or the mechanics just look really interesting, and also a lot of the games that I'll be talking about today actually have demos that are available right now if you want to check them out. So yeah, today's video might be slightly longer than the normal what's coming up on Steam kind of video that I do here, but all that being said, let's just go ahead and get right to it, starting with a game that is a sequel to a pickup that I had in April, and that is Darkest Dungeon 2. So Darkest Dungeon 2 is a role-playing game with some roguelike elements, and it's a follow-up to the 2016 original. Like I mentioned in the April pickups video, I actually have the original on the Switch and just recently grabbed it again on sale so that I could dive back into it on the Steam Deck. You'll be managing multiple characters in your party, each with their own abilities, and you can outfit them with various trinkets and combat items. Navigating by stagecoach, your goal is to reach a mountain and take down an evil that has overtaken the world. Now that might not sound especially unique, but what really makes this game stand out to me again is the art style, which is just incredibly bold and colorful despite a pretty dour premise. And the other thing I really appreciate is the combat in these games, which has you not only sorting out which abilities to fire off, but also the position of your party members, as some abilities are dependent on where they're placed relative to the enemy. In addition to dealing directly with threats, you'll also have to manage your character's stress levels and their relationships with each other this time around, which adds an extra layer of strategy to everything. The sequel looks to improve on the core combat system of the original, and also transitions the original game's 2D graphics to 3D, so if you were a fan of the original, it's shaping up to be a solid sequel, and one that I would guess will run pretty well on the Steam Deck. Next up is a more lighthearted turn towards the supernatural roguelike genre, and that is Death Retreat, coming out on May 11th. First off, I feel like this really should have come out closer to Halloween, but hey, since I wish Halloween lasted longer anyways, I really don't mind it that much. But Death Retreat is a 2D action roguelite hack and slash featuring hand-painted environments and traditional animation. The Halloween spirit is missing, and you'll be playing as Scary to help save Hallowtown. This is another game that's displaying its influences pretty clearly, but I'm not going to scoff at anything that conjures up imagery of Hollow Knight. True to the genre, you'll be doing a lot of platforming, slaying a variety of monstrous foes, and collecting candy to purchase random potions that will either aid you or potentially hurt you as you soldier on. For instance, you might grab a potion that will bump your agility up, only for your damage to take a dive. So far it's looking like pretty standard stuff for the genre, but with a spooky coat of paint and a gorgeous presentation, I'm really looking forward to this one, and if you want to see how it is for yourself, there is a demo available that you can grab right now if you want to check out Death Retreat, and from what I've seen so far, it runs pretty great on the deck. Now, amping the tension up from spooky to terrifying, we have the Outlast Trials that is dropping on May 18th. Staying true to the series' first-person psychological horror roots, the Outlast Trials is a prequel to the first two games and features test subjects from a Cold War experiment. And while you can complete the game solo, you can also play this one in a 4-player cooperative mode, with each character class hosting a distinct skill tree and unique abilities such as placing mines or healing other players. So far, it's definitely shaping up to be as terrifying as prior entries, and early gameplay looks really promising. I'm also kind of pumped to see more about the origins of Outlast's world, and while I'm not overly thrilled about the idea of exploring pitch-black environments with no idea what's waiting around each new corner, I do love me some psychological horror, and even if it leans a little too hard into jump scares at times, I'll be keeping an eye out for this one when early access kicks off on the 18th. Next up, doing a complete 180 away from the dark and terrifying, is an adorable, cutesy platformer called Bread and Fred, which is coming on May 23rd. Bread and Fred is billed as a challenging co-op platformer where two penguin friends have to climb to the top of a snowy mountain. Mechanically, it looks like one player will be the anchor, while the other takes the swing to reach trickier heights. But if you don't have a friend or just prefer to play solo, you can apparently do that, although I imagine it will be much more difficult since your buddy will become Jeff, a rock. I'm definitely getting some Celeste vibes from this on the premise alone, but I doubt the challenge will be quite as grueling as some of the areas in that game. But still, it looks to be a fun couch co-op sort of affair, and again, while I don't think it's going to be that fun if you decide to play it solo with your rock buddy, I guess it's nice that there's an option to do that at least. And speaking of cutesy pixelated graphics, moving along to May 25th, we have another 8-bit throwback to the Mega Man games, it looks like, and I've already played the demo for this, I'm very excited for it, and that is Bat Boy. So right off the bat, no pun intended, this has nothing to do with Batman, but rather is a side-scrolling action platformer where an evil mage has brainwashed your teammates to participate in his Trials of Darkness. That representing a series of brutal athletic events where you'll have to go rescue all of your friends who specialize in different areas of sport because they, like you, are vigilantes at night, because why wouldn't they be? You'll be teaming up with a crow named Garu who kind of serves as like a Navi-like character in this game, and you'll be working to free the minds of your sports hero teammates to learn their skills before they fall victim to their trials. It's a completely nonsensical setup, and I'm already loving it, and having played the currently available free demo, I can say with confidence that it is absolutely nailing the feel of the games that it's paying homage to. It feels like Mega Man meets Shovel Knight, and it has some really intriguing mechanics, not just for combat, but also for how you navigate the levels. So if you're at all a Mega Man fan and grew up playing those earliest NES entries, you're probably going to feel right at home with this one, and this is going to be a day one purchase for me. Next up, also launching on the 25th and shaping up to be probably one of the biggest releases for me, and one that definitely falls into that AAA arena, would be The Lord of the Rings Gollum. Now, this was announced a few years back, and I admit that I was more than a little skeptical, partially because Lord of the Rings games have been kind of hit or miss, but also because I wasn't sure how engaging it would be if you make a game where you play as Gollum. Not that he's completely incapable of defending himself, but he doesn't exactly fit the mold of a more traditional fantasy hero with a range of bombastic combat abilities. But the more footage I've seen, the more appealing this game is starting to look to me, and the duality of Gollum/Smeagol seems like a prime opportunity for some great storytelling. Plus, it doesn't look to be wholly bound by a lot of the existing lore, since it's set 8 years before the War of the Ring, and will be telling a completely original story. Mechanically, it looks like you'll be doing a lot of climbing and platforming, but also engaging in a lot of sneaking around and avoiding conflict. I imagine it's going to be heavy on environmental puzzle solving, and to be fair, a lot of the environments they've shown so far are gorgeous, landing somewhere between realistic and cartoony visuals. It's hard to say whether or not this will all gel together into a fun experience, but I'm cautiously optimistic at this point. And considering it's also going to be on the Nintendo Switch, I expect this is going to be a game that runs reasonably well on the Steam Deck, but ultimately we'll just have to wait until we get closer to the 25th to kind of see reviews and see what this game is all about. And finally, this last game is one that I'm expecting will provide a very good experience, mostly because it's from Night Dive Studios, the same company that has just really proven itself at being great at taking old 3D classics and then remastering them or remaking them entirely in the modern era as they've done here. But considering they've done games like Quake, Doom 64, and Turok, this one I'm pretty excited about because they're doing a full-blown remake of System Shock, a game that I never got around to playing. I have very little frame of reference for this game, but I do know how much love and care Night Dive put into their work, and from playing some of those games that I already mentioned, I'm expecting this might be the best way for me to finally experience what this game has to offer. Originally released in 1994 but taking place in 2072, System Shock is a first-person action game that takes place in a large multi-level space station. You'll be dealing with various cyborg threats, solving puzzles, and piecing together a story thanks to the logs and notes that you encounter throughout the environment. And honestly, that's about all I know about this game, or at least all I'm willing to research at this point. There is a demo available for this game right now if you want to check it out, so if you're a veteran of the original System Shock and want to see what it looks like, you can do so for free right now. But me personally, I'm going to try to go in as blind as possible just so I can enjoy this, because I know a lot of people herald it as a classic. Alright, and that's it for this one. I know I tend to move through these at a pretty brisk pace because I'm not really sure from one month to the next, like, how many cool games are going to be coming out that I really want to make sure get covered. But hey, what about you? Are there any games that were not on this list or something that should be on my radar but is not, that's dropping in May? If so, please do let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for your time. Have a tremendous day, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.